All right, man, peace. Brothers, this video right here is going to feature a so-called young black man from Brooklyn, New York by the name of Justin Richey, who unfortunately met a very early demise due to what seemed like a relatively unnecessary altercation. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because so many so-called young black men get into these unnecessary confrontations / altercations that can be avoided or could be avoided by just utilizing a certain level of wisdom. So anyway, they're going to talk about this case, and I'm going to chime in.
We begin tonight with a deadly shooting outside a Brooklyn bodega. Right now, police are searching for the gunman who targeted a teenager just a day after his 16th birthday. CBS 2's Natalie Dudridge is live with that story in East New York. Natalie.
Well, hi there, Jessica. We spoke to heartbroken family members who didn't want to appear on camera, but tell us the teen had just celebrated his 16th birthday yesterday. They say he was very hardworking, looked after his family, and they have no idea why he was targeted right outside this deli.
Well, let's be for real for a second, Natalie Dudridge. The main reason why his family did not want to appear on camera is not only because they were heartbroken, but also because, in the so-called black community, we don't want to be on camera too much when we're involved in any type of crime, even when we're the victim of the crime. Because other people in the so-called black community may say to themselves, these people are working with the police, they're working with the authorities. Who knows, the person who shot her son may be associated or affiliated with a so-called gang or particular group that may seek out some level of justice or vengeance. Or maybe the young man, Justin Richey, was gang affiliated, who knows? I'm not going to cast aspersions on the brother. One thing that I will say is this. Oftentimes, when you're growing up in these type of communities, it's best to be by yourself. It's best to be a loner, especially when you know that the environment is not conducive to productivity. And it's difficult to understand that if you're not coming from a household that's led by people who understand what it means to, to operate in an upright manner. A lot of our people have never been taught basic propriety. It's just the truth. And certain people may get upset by what I'm saying. But a lot of times, many of these so-called young black men don't even have a first chance, much less a second chance, because they're not taught the proper things in regards to how to avoid confrontation. Now, in life, confrontation and altercations are going to come. But you should do your best to avoid unnecessary confrontations and altercations. The scriptures tell us in Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turneth away wrath. Sometimes it's okay to tell a dude, my bad. Hey, brother, good morning. How are you doing? Or I apologize for bumping into you. Things like that will oftentimes help you to avoid dumb shit. A lot of people in the so-called black community, let me specify, a lot of so-called young black males in the so-called black community die over dumb shit, like being proud. You bump into someone, you disrespect someone, you try to stare them down for no reason. And you end up initiating a very, very unnecessary circumstance that could have been avoided. You're just going about your business. And let me say this. If you happen to be someone with a high level of mental acuity and understanding, and you know that you're in an environment that's not going to help you or your children rise up to another level, it's incumbent upon you to leave that so-called community, that so-called environment. You have to get out of there as soon as possible. Because that cesspool mentality is what's hurting the so-called black community more than anything else. We know, let me specify, certain so-called black communities, because you have affluent black communities in America as well. They just don't get publicized as much. But the so-called ghetto mentality that comes from inside, more than so-called police harassment or racism, of course, those are issues. But that's why Christ stated point blank, he said, the kingdom of heaven reside within you. We have to understand our own sense of self-worth so that we can improve our environment. I've stated this in other videos. The relationship that you have with your environment, with your community, with your neighborhood is symbiotic. It is symbiotic. We feed off one another. The environment is a reflection of the people that live there, and the people are a reflection of the environment. So if the environment looks trashy, it's oftentimes because the self-esteem of the people that live there is very low. So we have to do a lot to improve those things. We cannot always just look to other people to improve things for us. because that's what a child does. When a child messes its room up, when you put a child up in his crib or in his high chair to eat, and it messes up its face or it gets food all over his chest and his belly, it cries to mama or daddy to assist it. We can't keep crying to other races to assist us and then claim that we're kings and queens. It does not work like that. But just getting back to the point, Mr. Justin Richey, I don't know about the parameters that were involved in his altercation with that other person. But brothers, if you find yourself in those type of situations, those predicaments, please try to use wisdom. A lot of these people are mentally ill out here. There are a lot of mentally ill people out here, especially in New York City. There are a lot of people who are spiritually disturbed. There are a lot of demonically possessed people out here, straight up. Straight up. And you have to try to avoid them, or they're going to try to take you down with them.
Police search for clues outside this East New York bodega where relatives tell us 16-year-old Justin Richey was shot around 5 p.m. Witnesses say he was involved in some kind of dispute and then went into this bodega. And when he came out, that's when a man pulled out a gun and shot him.
And that happens a lot in our so-called communities. I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe they knew one another from somewhere. Once again, there may be reasons why Justin Richey's family does not want to appear on television. A lot of times the media does not know the whole story. Sometimes they may have known one another. They may have had a beef going back a ways, maybe over a woman, maybe over certain affiliations. Maybe they bumped into one another in the past, had a little fist fight in the past. Who knows? Point being is this: try to avoid dumb shit.
Just total disbelief about what happened about our friends.
Police say the teen was shot in the torso and then ran across the street where he collapsed here near Blake Avenue and Pine Street. Richey was rushed to the hospital but did not survive.
When we see each other, we hear talk, tell us how you trying to make it out the hood and trying to survive.
Brothers, you hear that? When a child has to think like that, 16 years old, 14 years old, 12 years old, you know what that means? That means that the parents did not think appropriately before bringing a child into that community. We do a very poor job of looking out for our children's future in certain respects. Because if you know that you're living in a bad community, a bad environment, and you're not happy there, why would you bring another child into the world to have to suffer with you? That's irresponsible and that's selfish. And you're going to bring a lot of misery onto your child as well. And you're going to imbue the child with the same demons that you have. We have to cure ourselves before we can have a child, man.
His friends say he was a funny guy who worked odd jobs like doing yard work to help his mom and siblings, and may have just been doing a cleaning job before he was shot.
The reason that he was working so hard is to take care of his family. He would like clean up, walk dogs and stuff like he just did anything that anybody asked.
No arrests have been made, and the NYPD say the gunman took off running.
It's alarming, especially for this neighborhood. I know it's a 75th precinct, crime is high, especially in East New York.
And police are now on the hunt for a suspect, and they're asking anyone with information to give police a call. We're live in East New York. Natalie Duddridge, CBS 2 News.
Well, let's be for real for a moment, Natalie Duddridge. You're in East New York. I'm pretty sure that they have surveillance cameras on every corner. Because as the gentleman previous to Natalie Duddridge already stated, they're nearby the 75th precinct. The community that they live in, or the neighborhood that they live in, is East New York. For those of you who don't know, East New York is a very crime-filled area in Brooklyn, New York. So they could find the person if they really want to find that person. They don't need anyone to give them any type of tips. They just want to see who they can use as informants, or who knows, maybe they can find associations for the person who killed Mr. Justin Richey and maybe lock them up as well. That's why many of the people in these neighborhoods don't trust the police, because the police act as if they're looking for information on an assailant or on a criminal, and they're really just looking to see who they can round up or get information on. So it's just a very, very, very bad dynamic between the so-called black community and the police. That's why I state that the issue of police brutality is pretty much a red herring, because the police are never going to change their outlook on the so-called black community, because our people have yet to understand that we have to take responsibility for our own community. And that happens when the so-called black man recommandeers his own household so that we can be our own police. We should not have the so-called Caucasian man acting as an authority figure in our communities. That is really emasculating to the so-called black man, and you have to understand that, so-called black man. You should be policing your own neighborhoods. In order for us to do that, we have to understand what our code of conduct should be. The Most High already gave that to us. But just getting back to the point, I hope that Mr. Justin Richey was not gang affiliated, gang associated. You know, oftentimes people get killed, they get murdered, their friends get on TV and talk about how they were babysitting for money and they were mowing lawns for money and doing this, and they were just trying to get out the hood, and then you come to find out something nefarious was afoot. But I'm not going to try to even approach besmirching the brother. At the end of the day, it's all about just trying to make better decisions, trying to avoid dumb shit. And if you're a so-called parent to one of these children, it's incumbent upon you to make sure that your child is being raised in the best environment possible. For you to live in a terrible neighborhood and then purposefully have a child so that they can grow up in that same bad neighborhood, you're more at fault than the child if the child grows up to be crooked. So that's basically the bottom line of it. So peace.